We are very excited to welcome everyone to the first of the Secret Sauce series of the Herbert Weil Jewish Business Network, where business leaders in Columbus will be sharing their secret sauce. We are very lucky to have with us today Mr. Ron Greenbaum, the Basement Doctor, who will be sharing with us the secret sauce of branding. After Ron's presentation, we will be taking questions. We already have some fascinating questions that Ron will be answering. And if you have a question, please ask it in the Zoom chat, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Also, Ron has a surprise gift for all the attendees of this Zoom event that he will be telling us about and how to get it during his presentation. The concept of branding has its source in ancient Egypt, where cattle owners would mark their cattle with a hot iron so the animal would be identified as theirs to deter theft. In our times, brands are used as a logo for a product, a store, or a business, so that people can identify the product, store, and business and know to trust it. The brand should also hopefully convey a message to the customer. The question is, how might we brand the very way we go about our business so that people can come to recognize the uniqueness of the service or product that we offer? I think we can discover a way to achieve this by asking ourselves a simple question. Why? Why do we do what we do? Obviously, money is a major motivator, but we have to discover another why to inspire us. And when we do, and if we can keep this other inspirational why, our own inspirational why, in mind throughout our workday, then this why will be branded into all that we do, making it special. There is a story that I think can help us with this. Once there was a rabbi who wanted to convey to his children what it means to live a life of purpose. With his children in the room, he called one of his assistants and asked him, "Why do you work?" The assistant answered, "I work to have money for food." The rabbi asked again, why do you want to eat?" The assistant responded, "I eat to live and be healthy." And the rabbi asked yet further, "And why do you want to live?" And the assistant answered, "I live to go to the tavern and have fun." Then the rabbi called in another one of his assistants and asked this second assistant, "Why do you work?" The assistant responded, "I work to have money." The rabbi asked him, "And why do you have money for food?" The rabbi asked him, "And why do you want to eat?" The assistant responded, "I eat to live and be healthy." And the rabbi asked him again, "And why do you want to live?" And the assistant responded, "I live so I can have strength to do what my Creator wants." From this story, we see that as we go through the motions of life, there can be different motivators. And if we can spend time to think about and discover what our why is, what inspires us, and if we can remember and keep in mind what our why is, what inspires us, then our why will leave a brand and imprint on all we do, and our own personal brand will shine through to all those around us. I'd like to ask my father, Rabbi Aryeh Koltman, to introduce Mr. Ron Greenbaum, the Basement Doctor.
Thank you, Rabbi Yitzi. I am humbled to introduce my very dear friend, Ron Greenbaum, the Basement Doctor, to begin our very first Secret Sauce series at the Herb Weil Jewish Business Network. Ron will be speaking on something that he is truly a master at, how to create a brand. When you're a genuine person, that can be the best brand. Our basement doctor, our friend Ron, doesn't just care about your basement, but even more importantly, he cares about every person in the basement, and in fact, the entire building. The basement is the foundation, and when you have a strong and secure foundation, that basement keeps the entire building strong and independent and can weather any storm. So too in business. When your foundation is values, caring about the customer, that's how your business is built to last. So it's no secret that Ron uses his picture for his logo. His name, the Basement Doctor, exudes concern for every customer. And that's not just in the Basement Doctor, but all of his businesses, whether it's Greenbaum and Steyer, the strategic marketing group, it's the customer, it's the person they're serving, which is of the most paramount importance. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a very dear friend, someone who I have learned so much from. In fact, there are many CEO Fortune 100 companies that use Ron's book to give to their business associates. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Ron Greenbaum, the Basement Doctor.
Well, thank you. And, I think Yitzi and the rabbi probably should have given this meeting as opposed to me. That was fantastic introduction. I want to thank the Herb Weil Jewish Business Network. I've known the Weil family for obviously many years, the Coltman family, Chabad, everybody that's putting this on, because I think whether it's me or other people that can give tips, and I learned a long time ago that the acronym TIPS is to ensure performance, but I didn't know where it came from. And somebody said it came from like the year 10 when somebody would in England would go to the pub. They'd throw a shilling or whatever it was called at the time at the person at the stable and say, hey, when I come out of here, I'm probably going to need your help, and I'm going to need a bed. So that's where that's a story of where the tips came from. So I'm going to try to give somebody some tips here today, and to ensure maybe some performance. What I find over the years is that some people really get it. Some people that I used to do a lot of actually public speaking. This is even better because, you can reach even more people over the internet. And, it's very interesting that, some people really pay a lot of attention. It's kind of probably what the rabbi deals with, or any rabbi deals with, or any clergyman every week. They give their sermon. They understand. Some people are going to listen. Some people are going to get it. Some people are going to actually practice it. And what I find is that it's the same thing. So I'm going to give a few tips today and take some questions if you have them. And we're going to have some fun. So let's start. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about obviously is how to create. We're going to talk about creating a brand, and I've created quite a few over the years, but most people know me as the Basement Doctor. But so we'll do some definitions of brands and things like that. But so what is a brand? It's simply put, it's defined by the customer, and that's Yitzi talked a little about it, and it's the perception of your business, and it's the perception of you. It's really a feeling of how your customer feels about you. We try to kind of, when we do our marketing, we do what's called a trust wrap, but I'll tell you a little story about how I know about how people feel about my brand. I'm actually a brand face, and some of you out there may be the face of your brands as well. So I don't try to hide. You know, I wear my hat. I've been out in the community for 30 plus years as the 25 as the basement doctor, and you know, I actually went to Target over the weekend to pick something up for my wife, and typically I go through you know, self checkout, but there was a woman standing there, and she was looked like she was a little bored, so I took my couple little things over to her, and she looked at me and she said, "Wow, you're the basement doctor." And I said, "Yeah, I'm the basement doctor." She said, "You know, I don't have any basement problems, but if I did, you'd certainly be the company that I'd use, or you'd be the one I'd use." And I said, "Well, why do you feel that way?" Because I hear that. And I said, "Do you know people whose work we've done?" "Not really." Have you, you know, looked at us, our website? I mean, why do you feel that way? She said, "Well, you know, you've been around since I was a little child, basically. I've seen you. I've get involved with Special Olympics charities, which I see you do the polar plunge." She had a reason why she felt that way about the brand. So, you know, people feel other, you know, ways about brands. My wife, tell you another little story about, again, how people feel about a brand. I was driving to Cleveland with my wife. This had to be 10, 12, 15 years ago. And she was dozing in the car. You know, it's not the best ride in the world going up to Cleveland. And she said, "You know, I want to get a cup of coffee before we get there." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." So about, oh, I don't know, a half hour later, she wakes up and she says, and we're about maybe 15, 20 miles outside of Cleveland. And I said, "You ready for your coffee?" And I said, "We're going to get off here." She said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, there's a gas station there or McDonald's." She said, "Why didn't you stop at Starbucks? You know I stop at Starbucks. We always stop at the Starbucks. Turn around." I said, "Wait a minute, what do you mean? A cup of coffee is a cup of coffee." She said, "No, you turn this car around and you go to Starbucks." "Why?" "Well, because that's the coffee I drink." Well, that's that's branding. That's what branding is about, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. So I'm going to give you some tips about that. You know, the rabbi mentioned earlier, I happen to have a few brands. A lot of people in Columbus don't know this, but and this isn't all of them, but I'm involved as an owner with all of these companies, and we'll talk further about what they mean. But they all kind of have the same mission statement, and some of them you may have heard of. Two of them are brand new. Actually, third one has been online as an e-commerce center, and unless you're, you know, looking for specific items, you may not know about it. But we'll talk a little bit about why what the logos are about and things like that as we proceed. Your brands are your reputation. You know, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, most people, I'm sure everybody knows that, defines brand as what people say about you when you're not in the room. Well, I like to repeat things that I think are meaningful. So what people say about you when you're not in the room. I think that's very meaningful because, you know, we're talking about business brands, but, you know, people have brands as well. So consider what people, how they think about you. You know, in today's market, a successful brand has to be consistent. You have to have consistent communication. So, you know, if you have a storefront, you want it to look a certain way. You know, it's amazing to me, you know, when I drive by, to me, this is like marketing branding 101. You drive by a store and it's got a name, and you don't, they spend all this money on rent. It could be on a major highway or whatever, but they don't tell you what they do. So they're wasting a lot of who they are. So when you have, give you an example. There's a company that used to be around, and I hope I don't want to insult anybody. I don't know if he's on the screen, but the gentleman that owned it was the Columbus Sandwich Company. I thought that was a great name, but he made the mistake of putting his business in a really bad place. It was on Route 56, 256 in Pickerington, and it was set way off the road. He spent a lot of money on equipment and making the insides look great, but it was a bad location and he didn't have any money for marketing and he went out of business. So, it's more than just branding because I thought it was a great name and that's why I stopped there. Columbus Sandwich Company. He had a great menu. Um, it was his lifelong dream to own a sandwich shop. And, I said, look, uh, I actually, I guess maybe I'm this way. When somebody asked me their opinion of things and I told them my opinion, I said, you're going to have a really hard time making it. And this is why. And unfortunately, I was right. So you got to make sure everything you do when you brand is right. Your print, your collateral, your website is number one now, online, content publishing, sales and service. And this is something that now that with COVID and the pandemic, we have developed ways of having our own internal web, and not just web, but a way for our employees to communicate with each other at a very, very high level. Extremely important now. You may not realize that, but it's hard. It's not easy. And again, I have a family of companies that have to communicate with each other, and we found that we had to develop our own systems, and I'm glad we did. Um, so the truth of the matter is, and frankly, I think that there's two truths. The truth of the matter, branding doesn't happen overnight, or even maybe in a few months. It's a process that requires strategy, but I reserve the right to get smarter. But that's what I tell our people at all the companies or people that I talk to. We reserve the right to get smarter. The internet has changed that. Branding can happen overnight if you do it the right way. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because there's huge examples of companies that seemingly sprung up and they did overnight. And if they have the right strategy of who they are and how they're doing it, they're turning into multi-million and even billion-dollar companies, and they're not taking as long today as it used to. So your ongoing efforts will establish your long-term relationships with your customer. That's also a biggie. We're about relationships at all my companies, and you should be too. Relationship selling, relationships of how you deal with the world, word of mouth, referrals, advocacy for your products. You've got to believe in your products, and you've got to be your own advocate. So you've got to continue the branding process. It's funny. I was invited to a fairly prestigious lunch one time. And I thought, it's a really fancy restaurant and I'm not going to wear my hat. And it was with the CEO of a bank, a big bank. And when I got there, he goes, really disappointed. I said, why is that? He said, where's your hat? He said, I was expecting to meet I had never met him before. He said, I wanted to meet the basement actor, the guy in the hat. So, it's funny. I mean, I've been asked to take my hat off when I walk into places, and I do, but the reality is the CEO of one of the top banks in the country said, I wanted to meet the guy with the hat. So branding is very interesting. So here's my 10 rules, and I'm going to go fairly quickly through here because I think, it's important. But, number one is every successful brand has a powerful purpose behind it. And you've got to ask yourself, why do you exist? Why does your brand exist? How are you different? What problems and challenges do you solve with your customer? Again, Yitzi and Rabbi Coleman, they talked about this in the beginning, and it's correct. What problems and challenges do you solve for your customers? The rabbi's got customers. And he has to help them solve their problems. He got challenges in COVID to be able to work with people. There's politics involved today and religion and anything we do. So, the biggest thing you want to do is ask, and this to me is a key question, why should people do business with you? Why should people listen to you? What is it that you have to offer? So what's your purpose? That's very, very important. Number two, who's your target? You've got to focus. You can't just say, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I had a friend that owned a company called the Home Food Service. This is literally 30 years ago. I had a big call center, telemarketing room at the time. And he said, I need you to help me get customers. And I thought, this is cake. Everybody eats. And we got involved in it. And I realized, and I found out very quickly, just because everybody ate doesn't mean they want people to bring food into their home. Now, today, that's a whole different story. But at the time, it wasn't quite as viable. It was viable, but not nearly what it is today. So timing is important. So, who are you? Who you're trying to reach? We have, the rabbi mentioned I happen to be one of the owners of Greenbaum Steyer's strategic marketing group. Somebody came to me, the president of the company came to me and he said, we need a data mining engineer. We actually have one on staff, but we weren't using him that way. We were using him for pay-per-click and other things. And he said, and he really wanted to kind of even educate himself even more about what that means. I didn't even know what that meant, data mining engineer. Well, it turns out it's probably doubled the size of our companies in about a year and a half after we put him into that position, because it tells us exactly who we need to market to. It tells us, when you start seeing, all the statistics and all the things. Earlier today, they showed me a graph for one of my companies. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it, but they do. So, you can't be everything to everybody, but you got to find out and focus on who is your audience. You got to have a mission statement. You got to be very clear in that mission statement. What are you passionate about? I have one mission statement basically for every company, and that is to be the most trusted brand in any industry we're in. I'm going to say it again, the most trusted brand in any industry we're in, because there's only three reasons why people buy, particularly in home improvements: trust, urgency, they need to have your product, and the ability to pay for it. And we work hard at trying to help people do that through financing, things like that. But so we have a clear statement in every company. Are we the most trusted brand? Not the biggest, not, I guess the best, that's a relative term, but we're passionate about trust. We will, the customer may not always be right, but they're always the customer. That's something that I had an old partner that in the home improvement business for many years, and that was something he said all the time. And, over the years, I've had some good mentors, and Tom Johnson, who's my partner, he was a great one. And that's what he always said. What are the qualities and the benefits of your product? This is a big one. They're all big, but this is really big. Your products, your services, people want the benefits of your service, and they have to be unique. You can't, if you don't have a unique product, now you're playing the price game, which I refuse to play. Because when I say I refuse to play, I mean, I want to stay in business. So a lot of people go into business, they undercut my prices in all my companies, and some of them, exist that way, some don't, but, you're circling the drain if you don't build value. You got to build value, you got to have quality. That's just the way we are. We want the best products, the best service, and frankly, if you're trying to build a brand or you're on here and trying to get some tips, that's a number one trip. Do it the right way. Figure out, is it your customer service, or do you have, you can have low cost products as long as they're still going to do the trick, and or you saving time. I mean, all these things before you start a business, you really got to figure out who are you in the marketplace, because if you don't, you're going to end up probably going out of business. What's your voice? Again, what's your unique? We use our voice to help. In the last year, the voice of the basement doctor, particularly in Columbus, but some of my other companies as well in other markets. We have a company that has a warehouse in Nashville. It's a wholesale manufacturing, Nashville, Atlanta, Columbus, soon to be on the East Coast. So the biggest growing company I have. And we try to use our voice to help people. Last year, we probably were involved with $5-6 million worth of fundraising for nonprofits. That's, for a relatively small companies, I feel very proud of that. That's the thing. I was frankly, when the pandemic hit, I was most concerned about that. And I told everybody, we cannot lose our voice in the community. We cannot. We have to find a way to survive, find a way to make profits, because and find a way to stay out there, because we're going to help people. And now more than ever, we want to do that. So, again, you got to be informative in who you are, what you do. Be bold. Don't be afraid to be bold in your voice. I think it's important. The boldest person I know is R.E.A. Coltman, and I take lessons from him. He's bold, and I love it, and it's great, and he helps so many people because of that. Again, what's your personality? This is very important. Are you personable and friendly? Are you corporate and professional? Are you spontaneous? Do you have high energy? Are you good at planning? Are you modern? Are you a fun brand? Are you cutting edge? Are you a serious brand? All these things. Are you exclusive? These are things you really got to think about when you establish a brand. What's your personality? What's your story? Now, there's a difference between a personality and a story. Your story has to be simple and clear of who you are and what you offer and why people should care about what you offer. That's your story. Make it simple and clear. Tell them who you are, what do you offer, and why people should care about that. That's really very important. Logos and taglines. I'm a real big giant believer in hiring a professional. I know in this day and age, you can get on the internet. Everybody is their own webmaster. Everybody does designs their own logos. If you can't afford it, I get it. But let me tell you a story about my own logo. For years, the Basement Doctor logo was basically a photo of me and then the Basement Doctor in cursive written out. And quite honestly, it was very hard to deal with. We came up with that right after we seemed like a good idea at the time, but for about 20 years, literally, we were using it, and I didn't like it. I just did not like it, and it wasn't user friendly. So I got involved with a woman who I co-wrote a book with, Tanya Eberhardt. And I said, Tanya, one of the things she did, she owned her own company at the time. And I said, can you look at my brand? And because she was great at branding, I said, can you look at it and tell me what your thoughts are? I'll pay you to do it. So I paid her to do a brand audit. And the first thing, she came in the door and she said, we had our first meeting after the audit, and she took a long time. She took about 2 months to do a brand audit. She interviewed almost every employee, every department, every company. And the first thing she said, you may not like this, Ron, but you got to change your logo. That was the first thing she said. Well, I gave her a 2-year contract, seriously, almost on the spot, to be a consultant and work with me. And we actually worked together on a lot of different projects, but she was honest. And she said, you need a different logo, you need a different tagline. And she came up with what's currently the logo for the Basement Doctor, and came up with the tagline from fix to finish. Our business immediately went up. Maybe, I don't know if that was the reason, but that's my story about logos. Logos are important, and hiring her to help made a big difference. These are logos, and these are the taglines. Earlier, I showed them without the taglines. These are logos with taglines. The Basement Doctor's taglines from fix to finish. Basement Doctor, in our industry, everybody knows, anytime somebody advertises, they advertise for me. I spend very little money advertising the Basement Doctor. Early on, I spent a lot of money. Now I spend virtually nothing, because the more money that you can save advertising goes right to the bottom line of your company. I learned that a long time ago. So, when we started out, we probably spent, now we were doing a lot less business at the time, but some years we spent 15% of what our sales on marketing. But now we spend about 3% in true marketing. I do other things through marketing the Basement Doctor, but an actual marketing expense. And yet people say, "Oh, I see you on TV all the time." I've been off of television for on two of the local stations for 2 years, I think. So, you know, it's it's interesting how what people's perceptions are. It's called, carrying your water. We have people now carrying our water. They talk about us. So, Green Bomb says bring life into your brand. That's really important. Whether you have, I think changing the logo brought life into my brand. Nash distribution, what you need now. That's my manufacturing distribution company. We pride ourselves. We get 90% of our orders out the same day. 90%. That's pretty amazing because we deal with thousands of customers. My DIY center, that's a business that you're going to see. We're competing with Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, and we're in certain areas we're competing very favorably. And this year especially, we've been testing a lot of things for the last year. It's a profitable company, but it's really going to grow. Our RG brands, we do franchise consulting as well as we franchise some of our own businesses. One of the newest business we have is called Betsy B, and that's my daughter whose name is Betsy. And it's safe, effective, ongoing cleaning using home probiotics. And it's the next generation of cleaning, something that nobody else really in the country is doing right now. And we feel real strongly about that. A new brand, Columbus Home Improvement, or C-Bus Home Improvement. It's a network. It's not just us doing work, but a network. And then I do a radio show and podcast with my son-in-law, Adam Bankhurst. It's on WTVN radio locally, but it's also worldwide because it is a podcast. And if you want to be on it, let us know, and we'll tell you how that works. But it's all kinds of things on there in terms of brands and challenges people have and different things they want to send out to the community. So you got to integrate your brand. Your website is the most. I can't say this more time. It's just so important. Your website is the most important part of what you're doing now in marketing, period. It incorporates everything we've been talking about. It can everything you do in it, and you better have a good mobile site because that's where people are going to find you. So if regardless of anything you do, you have to know how to use the web, which is why, again, I got involved with a gentleman named Mike Stiers, and it's called Green Bomb Stiers Miking because this guy is the biggest expert I ever met, and I'd be foolish not to be involved. So, I think, again, the web is important. And that's, if I had to say, what's your secret sauce? It was our ability to pivot and use the web properly. And it was really bringing one individual aboard at this company that showed us, we thought we knew the web until he came aboard. And now we truly do. And then lastly, we want to keep building. Just keep building your brand, keep building and building and building, kind of like building a basement wall, one block at a time. We didn't, again, it wasn't built in a day, but if you do it the right way, you can build, again, using the web, using cause marketing, using things that people maybe never even heard of that are listening in today. We have so many different blocks and building blocks of how we build these brands. And, this is 10 of them, but we probably have 100. So, if you want more information, you can visit, I wrote this book along with Tanya called The Brand Face. It's you can purchase it on Amazon or Kindle. And then, Yitzi mentioned a gift. If you get on rongreenbaum.com, I will send you the book, The Basement Doctor from the Ground Up. And it's really, it's basically a lecture I gave to the business school at Columbus State. And they liked it. And some people saw it and they said, you need to publish it. I did. And they use it as a curriculum. And the rabbi said, I'm honored that some people give it to all their new employees because it talks about what a CEO or what a business or how I did it. And so again, you can get a PDF as well through the website, or you can get the book. And that's where we're at. If you have questions, I think the rabbi's going to handle the questions. And again, I want to thank you for letting me talk a little bit about branding. It's because you can tell I'm pretty passionate about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ron, the words that left your heart entered everyone else's. And I have several questions already have come through. The first question is, how did you come up with the name Basement Doctor?
Well, Rabbi, that is a great story. And that is something people ask me all the time. I wish I was brilliant, but I was actually driving to a trade show in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of my customers for my wholesale manufacturing had a booth there. He asked me if I would come and talk about a couple of the products there. So on my way there, I was on Route 70. I'm on my way to Pittsburgh. I glance over right outside of Pittsburgh, and there's a billboard that says The House Doctor. So we had been struggling with our name. It was, at the time, it was J&D Hydrotech, and before that it was J&D Waterproofing. And people didn't remember that. And not only did they not remember it, but it didn't really make it made a lot of sense to us at the time. And it actually was a contest. J&D Hydrotech was a contest we had, and the employees voted on it. Well, it wasn't a good name. And for years I struggled with it. And finally, I looked over, so I came back and I did some research and found out there really wasn't any basement doctors, and I considered myself one. So I trademarked the name, and as they say, I put a hat on with a logo, grew my beard a little longer like you, and I'm the Basement Doctor.
Yeah, well, it works. It works. Anyone who has wants to ask any questions, please feel free to use the Zoom chat. And we have some more questions. Ron, you mentioned the internet. How did the internet change marketing, and when did this actually happen?
Wow, that's another great question. I personally realized probably about when the internet, just to give you an idea, my wife stole one of my email addresses. It's rgreenbaum@aol.com. So I got involved with AOL initially and created a website and actually launched a company for my industry called basementmaintenance.com, and signed up people all over the United States. Again, this was probably about 20 years ago, and started getting leads that way at a time when a lot of these companies didn't have their own website, didn't really. So AOL actually gave me an award for doing that. And I realized that this wasn't going to be a flash in the pan, that this was going to be something we really needed to be the best at. So over the years, I spent a lot of money on bringing technology into the company, people that understood it, because I didn't. And I listened to them, and we kept getting better and better people to, again, I had to start a marketing company. So many people, people kept saying to me, well, who does your marketing? Is it somebody in New York? Is it somebody in Atlanta? Who does your TV? Believe it or not, I've done my own television commercials in-house forever. I've occasionally ventured out to a couple of production houses and been disappointed. So I've always had people on staff that can do that. We've always had real customers in our commercials, and then we put all this on the internet. That's because you can. It's called the World Wide Web for a reason. You can reach anybody in the world. When I played basketball with the Harlem Globetrotters for many, 4 or 5 years, again for charity and some other things. I got people from Russia actually emailing me, telling me, hey, I had a guy who said, my name's Greenbaum, I live in Russia. I saw you play basketball with the Harlem Globetrotters. That's when I realized. And then the Globetrotters press releases for me were all over the world. I started seeing the press releases in Germany or whatever, the schedule of the Harlem Globetrotters, videos of me playing basketball, things like that. You know, today people still yell at me across the parking lot, "Hey, when are you going to play basketball again?" You know, it's fun. It's fun. So that's part of being a brand. But so 20 years ago is when I realized, and that's when things really changed. But when I started realizing that you have to have specialists, and again, our marketing team is 30 plus people. Uh, that's not just for the basement doctor, but I have them to use. So we come up with an idea, boom, we don't have to wait. We get it done.
The next question we have is, Ron, is there a litmus test to see if you're doing proper marketing? And how do you know if your brand is working?
I'm going to give you a very simple answer. What's your bank account look like? That's how you know if your brand's working. Yeah, I mean, you know, I have two rules. I was in Florida for 3 years, and basically having other people, you know, run the company before COVID. I came back because of COVID, and I was running the company. You know, I wasn't running the companies because I'm operationally irrelevant, but I invested in a lot of companies. But the two rules are keep the bank account at a certain level and don't get sued. So to answer your question, you know, I'm not trying to be smart when I say, does your marketing work? Uh, how's your company performing? Are you getting what you need out of your marketing? How do people feel about it? Surveying? That's really, I guess the real answer is survey. You got to survey the public. You got to survey your customers and say, do they have your message? But a brand is, you know, either successful or you're not. Kind of like in the restaurant business, it used to be you had a successful restaurant and you knew you had a good location when you opened the door and people came in. Then you had to make sure you had good food. But location, location, location. So it's the same thing. It's, are you getting, again, enough leads or business to stay in business? That's really my test.
Are there any? Yeah, I don't see any questions on the chat. Um, I want to thank you, Ron, for your amazing talk. It's going to make a profound difference. And it makes sense that once you have a brand, then everything else can take off. We have a question. What's the question? Okay, you want to tell me the question? Okay, what's the question? Okay, we have a question. The question is, here comes the question. The question is, Ron, since you've made your brand about you, what happens when you retire?
That's a fantastic question. You know, when you say the brand is about me, it is in Columbus to a degree, but I already have animation for the Basement Doctors. Been subtly, slowly but surely, I've been getting myself out. I've, as of COVID, I've kind of come back and done some of the commercials myself, but for quite a while, I wasn't. And I thought I could use animation or in other markets. There are basement doctors outside of Columbus and Lyman, Toledo, Cincinnati. They do their own ads. They just say, they don't call themselves the basement doctor. They say, for instance, the gentleman in Lyman's name is John Clements, and I'm John Clements with the basement doctor, but we use exactly the same commercials, but it's him. So I thought about that, and that's a great point because it is a challenge if your brand becomes just about you. But we have some, you know, the litmus test for how you've done in business is kind of if you put your finger in a glass of water and you take it out, there'll be a ripple, but it'll end at the end of the glass. If you stuck your finger in a pond, it goes out even further. I've always said I want to make sure I have a glass at the end of the line, and we do. We have a lot of people in place. You know, we have, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of customers that recommend us all the time, and it's not because of me. Even though, again, I'm pretty good at putting the message out there, but I think that again we have a trusted brand that will carry on long after I'm gone. But it was a great question.
Ron, I want to thank you very, very much for giving time from your busy schedule. And we have to thank Mike Stiers and, of course, Herb Weil and Steve Weil for helping us put today's event together. And everyone is invited back. On February the 2nd, Mike Schiff from Schiff Capital Partners is going to share his secret sauce on how to maximize your capital. Thank you for coming, and please join us on February the 2nd with Mike Schiff. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.